everyone, welcome to our latest video in the Head in the Cloud series hosted by Citrus Global. Here with me today is Simon Munch-Andersen, who is the VP of Engineering at Ultimate.ai. Simon, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Pleasure's all mine.
Indeed, VP of Engineering at Ultimate. Haven't been here for so long, within 4 months now.
So it must have been an interesting time for you to make that transition during this pandemic and during the course of 2020. How was the lockdown, or how has it been or going for you at the moment?
I think working in many startups are quite used to work remote. The tools like Zooms, GitHub, and all these email, all this is ready to work remote. I think from that point of view, it hasn't been so difficult. Yeah. Many of the processes were also very easy to transit online. Obviously, the social aspect is the one that many people are missing. Both at work, not seeing your coworkers, not being able to hang around for coffee, but also missing the social life outside of work has also been relatively hard for many people, especially for me.
I can imagine, yeah. So as you've started a new job, have you been able to meet any of your co-workers at the moment, or just a select few maybe?
No, I had a few days at the office meeting most people face to face, and then Berlin went into harder lockdown shortly after, and it's been very remote since then.
Okay, interesting. So throughout the year, just over a year now, what sort of personal or business or even project frustrations have you encountered?
I think it's been a weird world, seeing a lot of problems in the society in general, and then seeing the engineering world, the e-commerce world booming and having a very, if not the greatest time, and living in that kind of great success, but also seeing, great society problems at the same time has been a little bit of a weird,
bit contrasting, isn't it, really?
Yeah,
I suppose.
it's a big contrast, yeah.
I can imagine, yes. I mean, as a result of the pandemic and all that's happened, have your priorities altered at all or changed in any way?
I mean, professionally not. It's always been, around building great teams, hiring great talent, and getting them to work well together. Obviously doing that remotely and building social connections and personal connections is difficult over Zoom, over a remote setup, but it's not impossible if you invest time to do so. Personally, obviously, the little social interaction that is possible to get these days is greatly appreciated. Never read so many books, never seen so many movies with good conscience, and being a couch potato has never been so socially acceptable, right?
Yeah, so, I know what you mean. I think my Netflix subscription's definitely got its use.
Exactly. So it's about to getting the best out of it.
That's it. No, I totally understand. It is frustrating though, isn't it, not having that social interaction, especially, bouncing ideas off people or with new colleagues, and when you're trying to build teams, it's not as personable done via Zoom. You can only do so much, and it's also hard to even gauge certain people and how they're really feeling via a Zoom meeting, read their behavior. It's much more of a challenge.
It's also difficult to differentiate yourself as a company over Zoom, right? Because you can't show your offices, you can't show a great team. So you can see some individual sitting in their kitchen one after another. But it's difficult to really show the brand of the company and the personality of the company off to new talent. So that's also slightly of a challenge.
Yeah, no, I totally understand that. What would you say the biggest lessons are that you have learned throughout the course of the last 9-10 months?
I think the fact that it is actually doable and not impossible to work remote and build a company and build a team and grow it and become a team remotely is definitely possible. It does require that you change your habits, that you do invest in personally chit chats and talks, and do actually care about your team. If you do so, it is actually possible to do it remote. It is more difficult. It's maybe not as easy and doesn't come as easy as it otherwise would have been, but it's definitely possible, and I think it's here to stay also, to some extent.
Yeah, that was going to bring me on to my next question, actually. What do you think is here to stay as a result of all this? So you think remote work?
Yeah, I think a lot of engineering teams that is very demanded in the market. I don't think they will ever come back full time to the office. I think companies that will be able to handle both will have the opportunity to have a great office where you can come together, work in groups, work on hard problems on the whiteboard, hang out socially, build connections, and the ones that at the same time offer a great deal of remote work for people to be in the zone, to really be able to control their time and their environment. Companies that can do that at the same time are really going to win, I think, in the future.
Yeah, no, I totally agree, and I definitely have seen a switch in certain people's mindsets that are now going to enable their teams to work remotely moving forwards. Because realistically, the work has had to, the show's had to go on, hasn't it? Things have had to continue moving forwards, and the work has to be done. So yeah,
I think many companies have been very surprised about maybe even increased level of productivity from engineers, giving them freedom, trusting them that they would do a great job working remote from their kitchen. I think a lot of managers have been surprised, had a lot of anxiety of that, but I think they've been pleasantly surprised. So I think it's really here to stay.
Definitely. So obviously at the moment, having moved to Ultimate.ai, do you think you'll be working remotely predominantly, even if, say, for argument's sake, you're allowed to go back into the office? What do you think, what would be the mix for you, maybe?
I think for a manager, where you really are in a role where you need to communicate, you need to hire, you need to bring people together, it is less obvious to work remote and isolate yourself. I think I definitely have a few days a week where I would decide to kind of work remote and try to squeeze hands-on work, presentation, documentation, investigation, where I would do that remote. And other days that are more fitted where I have one-on-ones, interaction with people, it is just tremendously much easier to do so face-to-face. But maybe I will probably not necessarily go to the office. Maybe I would rather meet with them for a walk and see that there's other opportunities to meet physically than just at the office for the sake of being at the office, right? That's
very true. Yeah, very true indeed, actually. What advice would you give then to businesses moving forwards after what you've learned over the past year or so?
I think that you do spend, at least I do, and I think many engineering managers spend a tremendous amount of time hiring great people. And it is difficult to get the right people to your team. Trusting them afterwards and giving them the right setting for them to do a great job is really, really important. And now I think one more tool has come into everybody's toolbox, which is remote work, and not just once in a while when you have sick kids or you're awaiting a big package. You can actually do that multiple times a week, maybe even weeks in a row. And it is different, but it's not inferior. It's maybe not either superior, but it is one tool that you have in your toolbox to stay with, to allow the team to work remote.
Totally agree, and it opens up more avenues for a lot of different candidates, for not having that on-site demand. I've definitely seen I've noticed a difference in customers and clients that I've worked with, and yeah, it definitely does. It enables them to broaden their horizons for sure and get the top talent.
Have a more broader geographical aspect also.
Yeah, for sure. What would you, given what's happened now, what would you ask of a modern talent partner under the new circumstances or the current circumstances?
I think this aspect of selling the brand or the employer brand of a client to candidates is very important, right? I think many companies showed up their ping pong tables, their coffee machine, great meeting rooms, and kind of showcase that the physical location also in the center of the city as a great perk. It is just impossible now. I like my kitchen, but I don't think that as a candidate you will be fascinated about that. So being able to really say what are the softer values, what is the culture of a company, why should you be joining that, how it is actually to work here beside, you know, fancy offices.
Yeah.
I think this is increasingly important, even post-pandemic.
So the soft values as a company then are
Yeah, I
key.
mean,
Yeah,
basically
okay.
that really what boils down to the reason why you would be joining a company. Right? What are the culture? What are the teammates you would be working with?
Yeah.
Um,
Definitely. Okay, that's good. No, very interesting, insightful. Yeah, very much so. Well, look, I want to thank you very much for your time. Yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on as a guest on the Head in the Cloud series. Hopefully, we can do it again in the future and look back on these days and sort of with a smile on our face, because I think we are sort of living in the future history lesson 2020 and early 2021 as we are now. It's, yeah, testing times, interesting times for sure.
it is testing everybody's.
For sure, patience. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
But no, thank you very much. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
I'm good, thank you.
All right, well, thanks again for your time, and you take care, and I wish you a successful 2021.